fourth question, if you see, assess the impacts of global warming on coral life system with examples. See, generally, the common tendency of most of the students is that when they look at a question, they will be excited. For example, they know about the global warming. So they will start writing about all the facts they know about global warming. Some people will be excited, geography students, when they see coral life system and write many points about the coral life system. But such people will not get any marks for this question. You should be careful. You should understand what are the things that are exactly asked in the question. See, they say assess. You have to assess, not just point out. Assess the impact of global warming on coral life system. Not just the coral reef, but coral life system. So, you have to mention the various impacts of the global warming on the coral life system along with the assessment with examples. This is the focus, examples. So, as this question is for 10 marks, definitely there will be 2 to 3 marks for examples and there will be 4 to 5 marks for the impacts and assessing it. Okay? Now let us come to this one. In the introduction, as I told you previously, for 10 marks questions, your introduction should be short, maybe some 3 to 4 lines. So, in the introduction, you can explain to the evaluator that you know about the coral life system and global warming. See, the coral life system. Essentially, in the marine waters, the mammals, the marine animal, small animal called coral polyp. Coral polyp. Will be there. And these coral polyps, they secrete a hard carbonate that becomes exoskeleton. So this calcium carbonate will bind all the coral polyps in the form of a reef. It's actually the exoskeleton of the coral polyps. So on this reef, there will be a lot of algae, zooxanthellate algae that take shelter. Similarly, coral reefs provide shelter for 25% of the marine animals, 25%. That is why everything like fish, crustaceans, molluscs, most of these things stay on the coral reefs. That is why coral reef is also called as the rainforest of the oceans. Rainforest of the oceans because of the high biodiversity in the coral reefs. So, having explained to the evaluator about the coral life system, you move on to the global warming. You can just tell that global warming is a rise in the temperature of the atmosphere mainly because of the greenhouse gases which are right now increasingly emitted by the anthropogenic activities. So, after having said about global warming for some one line, you come to the impacts. You can say global warming actually leads to increase in the ocean temperature also. Ocean temperature is also called as ocean warming. Similarly, the greenhouse gases like carbon dioxide are absorbed by the ocean, which leads to acidification of the ocean. See, the ocean acidification actually leads to decrease in the pH levels. As you know, the pH 7 for neutral waters. As the acidity increases, the pH will fall below 7. So pH will decrease. Similarly, ocean acidification causes diseases. It causes diseases to marine animals, same like coral reefs also. Then global warming leads to melting of glaciers and leads to rise in the sea level. Also, global warming that leads to climate change also causes increased frequency in the tropical storms. Tropical storms will be increasing. See, now you should try to tell effect of each of these things on the coral reef or the marine animals living on the coral reef. See, as the temperature of the ocean increases due to the stress on the coral reefs, as you should know that coral polyps are very sensitive to change in temperature, change in pH, change in nutrients, etc. They actually cause coral bleaching. Coral bleaching means, as I told you, the algae which exists on the coral reefs which gives very good colors to the coral reefs. Most of this algae will be expelled from the coral reef due to increased temperature. This expellation is called as coral bleaching because mostly it becomes white, pale white color as the color disappears. Also, you should remember that this algae provides 90% of the food for the polyps. So once algae is expelled from the coral reefs, definitely the corals will start starving for food. They start starving for food. So within next sometimes a few weeks, if the algae does not regenerate, then it slowly leads to the death of the polyps. That is the effect of the increased temperature. As I asked you to give examples, you better mention some example for everything. You can say, see, as you can say this is geography question, it's better to draw a map. So you can say Australia, this is the Queensland in Australia, Queensland. Near the Queensland there is Great Barrier Reef. Great Barrier Reef. And almost 35 to 50% of the Great Barrier Reef is discolored. That means coral bleaching has occurred in the Great Barrier Reef. You can tell that example. Then ocean acidification. As the pH level decreases in the ocean, it again brings stress on the coral reefs. It leads to disintegration of the coral reefs that definitely affects the lives of several marine animals that are taking shelter in the coral reefs. Similarly, it causes diseases to the polyps as well as the animals which are living in the coral reefs. So you can say the example of the coral reefs on the Gulf of Kutch. See, the coral reefs present in the near the Gulf of Kutch definitely are not affected only by the ocean acidification. Of course, they are also affected by the other anthropogenic polluting activities happening on the coast of the Gujarat. Now, sea level rise. As the sea level rises, generally what happens is there will be more sedimentation into the ocean. As sedimentation occurs in the ocean, the coral reefs will be covered by the sediments. This covering is called as smothering. If this is the ocean, if these are the coral reefs in the ocean, the sediments coming into the ocean will smother the coral reefs, because of which the sunlight cannot really enter into the coral reefs, because of which again there will be development of dangerous algal bloom. So the sea level rise leads to sedimentation, which leads to smothering, covering of the coral reefs, that reduces the penetration of the sunlight, which in effect creates algal bloom, dangerous algal bloom, which will affect the coral life system, coral ecosystem. Then tropical storms. As we might have read in the recent newspapers also, that global warming is leading to increased frequency of the tropical storms. And tropical storms are very powerful, and with their energy, they can even break or dismantle the structure of the coral reef. See, you should remember that coral reef is not in the deep depth of the ocean. It is in the surface of the ocean, I mean shallow waters. It's in the shallow waters. That's why they bear the brunt of the tropical storms. Hence, there will be effect on the structure of the coral reef. You can give example of Andaman and Nicobar Islands. Actually, around the Andaman Nicobar Islands, there are a lot of coral reefs, and during tsunami, we have observed that most of the reef structures are broken. That is an example of how tropical storms can actually break the structure. Now, having discussed about the impact of global warming on the coral reef, we have to give some examples, and geography question, one or two maps would also fetch you more marks. Now, see, you assess them, but you have to say that global warming is not the only reason for the effect on the coral life system. There are some anthropogenic activities. For example, coastal pollution. Along the coastal areas, if there are any industries, any agriculture from where the runoff contains the fertilizers, pesticides, that adds extra nutrients into the coastal area where corals are there. So the coral polyps definitely will be suffocated by the extra nutrients or pollution coming from the activities on the coastal areas. So you have to say more, then it's better to give 1 or 2 lines of your suggestion or opinion towards the end. You have to say that it is responsibility to protect the coral reefs as they are the marine ecosystem, means they are the rainforest of the oceans. So to conserve the environment, we have to start reducing the emission of the greenhouse gases, and we should take care of the coastal areas where reef is there. Like that you can conclude. So do you have any questions on this?